Buying a house is probably the biggest investment that you can make. And it can be, as a result, if you haven't done it in a while, it can be really stressful. So I wanted to take you through the 10 steps of buying a home so that you can feel more in control and confident throughout the entire process. Hi, my name is Deirdre Dunn. I'm a real estate broker here in the Wellington and Waterloo regions in Ontario, and I help empty nesters downsize. I help reduce the stress, overwhelm, anxiety using my 5-step method I like to call your next chapter. So before we begin, hit the subscribe button, press the like button so more people like you can see this video. Next is finding a realtor. And so finding out what their qualifications are. But what we like to say in the industry is it's somebody that you like and trust. So what kind of qualifications are you looking for? Does their personality meet your wants and needs? That's really important so that the communication between the two of you is open. Feel free to discuss anything, bring up any questions, issues, concerns that you might have. But also, do they come prepared? You'd be amazed at the number of realtors who actually it out there. And so do they become prepared? Are they wasting your time? Also, do they know the financials? Can they explain mortgages to you? Not that they're mortgage experts, but they have to have a solid understanding of the process. And can they explain that? Because I've spent a lot of time with other buyers answering questions that they didn't really understand that their mortgage agent was telling them. The other thing that I want to know is what qualifications do they have around market stats? Do they understand what's happening in the market? Are they stats people, strategy people? You want to know that they have a process and a strategy on how to get you the house that you're looking for. The next part is about your financials and finding a lender. So it's really two parts. First is gathering all your financial statements, and then the second part is finding that lender that's going to help you get a mortgage. So before I get into what documents you need to gather around, just be aware that it's interesting. There's an interesting stat out there that of people who are downsizing close to retirement, I think it's around 2/3 all still have a mortgage. So if you're one of those people who is going to need a mortgage when you're downsizing, you're not alone. That's a growing segment of the population. So here's what you need in terms of information. So when you go and get a mortgage, you're going to have your T1s, which is your income tax statements, your notice of assessments, those for 2 years. Any loans that you have or credit card statements, you have to submit those. If you're still working, then it's your letter of employment and at least 2 pay stubs, maybe more. If you're not working, then you fall under what's called a high wealth individual, and they will use your investments. You'll also have to get statements for your most current investments, RSPs, TFSAs, all of that, stocks and bonds. And so you're going to gather all that information. Now, if you get one thing from this video, one thing, this is the one thing. So if you go online, there's those mortgage calculators that you can use. They simply give you a very large ballpark. They are not accurate at all. You just put in your general information and it gives you a range, but they are not accurate in any way. So please be aware of that. So now you've gathered all your documents, you have to find a lender. So who do you use in terms of mortgage lending? Much like a realtor, it's someone that you like and trust. Do they communicate well? Do they explain the process well? It isn't just about who can get you the lowest interest rate, which is what people focus in on. It's also about how they can help improve your credit score if need be. It's also about their communication, and because they are part of your team. They are part of your team for buying a house and selling your house. And so you want to have that comfort. You want to know that they'll work with your realtor, because I often will call the mortgage broker just to introduce myself so that we're both on the same page. So those are the things that you need to do. You need somebody who you trust that can guide you and explain the process to you. You've gathered all your financial documents, you found a lender, you've submitted it. So the next stage is getting pre-approval. What this means is finding out, given your financial situation, your credit history, everything about you financially, what will a bank or a lender, how much will they lend to you? Now, The big thing is just because they will say they'll give you so much money doesn't mean you have to spend that much money. What most people do is they want to live within a certain monthly payment. And your mortgage broker or agent can help you determine how much that translates into in terms of buying. A couple other things to be aware of. If you need mortgage insurance, what if you're putting less than 20% down, more than 20% down? You haven't done this in a while. So less than 20% down is what's called an insured mortgage. And there are actually 3 companies that do insured mortgages here in Canada. CMHC is by far the lion's share of the business, but there's actually 2 other companies, Sagan and also Canada Guarantee. Those 2 also do insured mortgages of under 20%. What that means is they actually are taking on the risk should you default on your mortgage payments rather than the bank taking it. Now, if you're looking at homes that are greater than $1 million, then just be aware that the minimum down payment has to be 20% here in Canada. So just be aware of that. The other thing that you need to be aware of is having a deposit ready. So once we find your perfect home, your offer accepted, then within 24 hours, you need to give the listing brokerage that deposit. So what does that mean? So you get an offer accepted Monday at 7 p.m. Before Tuesday at 7 p.m., that deposit has to be given into the listing brokerage. And it often looks like this. It's really super easy these days because you can go to your bank, get a bank draft, take that bank draft and go to the listing brokerage's bank who they deal with, and you direct deposit it into their trust account. You get a receipt. You take a photocopy of that receipt and send it to your agent or to the listing brokerage or both, and Bob's your uncle. So really straightforward, but you do need those deposit funds available to you so that you can do that transaction within 24 hours. So those are the things that you need to consider when you get pre-approval. How does pre-approval work for you? Well, there's really actually 2 things that are being pre-approved, you and the house. So you've submitted all your documents. The lender, whoever it is, has said you can purchase X amount, but the house has to be pre-approved. So when we find that perfect house, there's a couple of strategies that I like to use. One is submitting the MLS listing at the same time as submitting the offer. So we submit the offer to the listing agent, we submit the MLS listing to your mortgage broker or agent to get the house pre-approved. Why do we do this? Because it shortens the approval process. So typically it's 5 days to get that, but if we submit it early and get on it quicker, then we might be able to reduce that time down to 24 or 48 hours because you've already submitted all your documentation. Now they can look at the house and say yes or no to the house. The other thing that you need to know is I also like to look at the mortgage agent so that we're working as a team. And if there's any potential issues, any questions, does the agent often ask me, do you think the house is going to appraise for that amount of money? All those sorts of things so that we're working as a team so we get the best outcome for you. We've got all the financial stuff to the side now. Now here comes the fun part, and that's looking for your next chapter of a home. And it begins with your vision. So what are the things that you don't currently like or want to change in your current house? What is it that you need and want in your next home? We're going to sit down, we're going to discuss all of those things, and at the end of it, we're going to come up with the 5 top things. And I call those magic 5 top things. And we always know that 2 of them, one is always going to be price, and the second one is always going to be the number of bedrooms. But what are the other 3 things that you need? That you need to be in a certain neighborhood. Do you need certain amenities by you? Do you need no stairs? Is it a backyard you need, or you're looking for a garage? So we're going to discuss all those things. We're going to get really clear on what it is that you need in that next home. And with that clarity means that we don't need to see an endless number of homes, because we're going to use that criteria to target the homes that we're going to go and see. And so typically my clients see between 8 and 12 homes before they find the perfect next home. And then there'll be no force fitting, no second guessing. We've got your vision down pat. Now we go out and search for your next home and evaluate each home. So as we see each home, I'm going to actually have you rank each home on a scale of 1 to 5. And 1 being a tear down, not at all, to a 5 being a must have. And if you evaluate it a 4 or above, it says to me that we should be submitting an offer. Now let's say we find a house and you rank it a 4, but you're saying, I don't really want to put in an offer. I don't think so. Well, then that tells me that we actually haven't gotten those top 5 things right. And we're going to sit down and reevaluate what those 5 things are so that we can readjust our search. We've adjusted our search and we found your perfect home. And now it's time to put in an offer. And the things that we're going to look at are, what price are you going to offer for this house? And that's always been on our very data-driven strategy. So we're going to look at market conditions. We're going to look at comparables. We're going to look at all the market stats to help you determine what price you want to offer on this house. Now, in terms of clauses, we're also going to look at what type of clauses you're going to include. So if we know that we're going to be in multiple offers, perhaps we do a pre-offer home inspection. What's that? It means that you're going to do your due diligence up front rather than after having your offer accepted. You're going to do the home inspection before you submit your offer so that you have done your due diligence. You know that you don't have to include that clause. Also, if financing is a concern for you, then perhaps we can, as I mentioned before, submit the MLS to your lender to have that process started so that we can reduce that time period. And then if there's negotiation involved, negotiation is always the best outcome for you. What does that mean? Well, it doesn't always just mean price. It may mean closing date for you. It may mean certain clauses that you feel comfortable including that must be included. It may mean how much deposit you're offering. And just in this digital age, we know that we can do everything virtually by electronic signature. And I take you through that whole process. Your offer's accepted. Congratulations. What comes next? Well, first, enjoy the flowers that I send you in congratulations in buying your new home. And I mentioned before about the deposit. This is really critical, that the deposit is submitted to the listing brokerage within 24 hours of the contract being accepted. So if it was accepted on a Tuesday at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, then that deposit is due before 1 p.m. on Wednesday. And as I mentioned, it's pretty straightforward. Many brokerages follow this, that you can deposit directly into their trust account by getting a bank draft from your bank account and taking it to the listing brokerage's bank and depositing it directly in their trust account. Now, there's a fallacy out there that if you don't give in your deposit, that's okay. The offer's all off. Absolutely wrong. That is totally wrong. You will be in breach of contract, and the sellers, depending on the situation, could potentially sue you, and definitely you will lose. There's lots of contract law to support this, so make sure that your deposit is in before that 24-hour period. The next thing is, if there's any conditions, then we want to do our due diligence fulfilling those conditions: financing, home inspection, insurance, having a lawyer review the contract if need be. And once all those conditions are fulfilled, then the contract becomes what we call firm and binding. So now we're waiting till closing date. But before we do that, we're going to send your contract as well as the MLS listing, if we haven't already, into your lender to get final pre-approval for the mortgage if you need a mortgage. And we also need your lawyer information at this point so that we can send the documents to your lawyer so that they can then start doing their own due diligence in terms of making sure that the property can close on time and be transferred from the sellers to you. The contract for your home is now firm and binding, and you're now moved into the transition stage. And this is moving guide and more. So as soon as your contract is firm and binding, I'll send you a moving guide, which will give you step-by-step on what you need to do the day after, as well as a week after, 2 weeks, and so on until closing day. And even on closing day, it gives you a list of things that you should need to pack so that it'll be easily accessible and make things a little easier for you. The whole point is to take some of the stress and worry and having to remember stuff away from you and put it into the moving guide for you. And so the other things that happen are we're going to set up your walkthroughs to see your house as well as the final walkthrough, which typically I like to do 24 hours to 48 hours before closing so that we make sure that everything is in order. There's nothing working order. There's no holes or scratches, major scratches in the floors. Also, I mentioned before, I'll have sent your contract to your lawyer, and you will then set up an appointment with your lawyer to go sign all the necessary documents anywhere from a week to maybe a couple days before closing. Now, if you haven't heard from your lawyer, let's say we're 2 or even better, 3 weeks before closing, I always recommend reaching out to your lawyer and making sure that they have all the documentation, getting a status update, and setting up that final signing appointment. And then lastly, once your house closes, that's not the end of our relationship. I'm here every step of the way, before, during, and after your transaction. So that means that I'm going to keep in touch with you. If you have any questions around real estate in the future, you want to know the valuation of your home, anything, I'm always here to answer your question. So that completes your 10 steps to buying a home. Now, if you could hit that subscribe button and press the like button so that other people like you could see this video, that would be terrific. Hope you've really enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.